Have you ever looked in the mirror and noticed that your face tells more stories than it used to? A few more lines, a little more silver in your hair, maybe some mornings when the body feels a bit slower to respond. But then, out of nowhere, comes a deep sense that somehow, something inside you feels stronger, more grounded. It's as if while the outside changes, the soul begins to stretch, to deepen, to whisper truths you didn't know you carried. That's the mystery I want to talk to you about today. Because aging is not just a physical process, it is a sacred spiritual journey. Some people think that after a certain age, life starts to shrink, that dreams fade, that usefulness wears out. But what if that's not true at all? What if God designed these years to reveal a kind of transformation that can only happen when we've lived enough, seen enough, lost enough, and loved enough to truly understand what matters? I believe something powerful begins to unfold after 60. It's not the end of the road. It's a turning inward, a drawing closer to the one who has walked with us since the beginning. Think about it for a second. In youth, we chase, we build, we worry, we prove. Our calendars are full, our plates are heavy, and our minds are always racing. But aging starts to peel all that away. And with each layer that falls, something more eternal starts to shine through. It's as if God gently removes the noise, so we can finally hear the quiet voice that was always there. This is not about giving up. It's about giving in the best possible way, surrendering to peace, to presence, to Him. I want us to take a walk together through this idea, not as a lecture, not as a sermon, just a heart to heart, because I've seen it in the lives of so many older men and women. There's a softness that comes, but also a strength, a quiet clarity that seems to say, I don't need to run anymore. I've found what matters. And the truth is, that kind of wisdom doesn't just show up. It's formed. Slowly, gently, sometimes through tears, sometimes through laughter, but always with God's hands shaping it. One of the first transformations that seems to happen is the shift from doing to being. In our working years, everything is about action, results, achievement. Even in the church, we can feel the pressure to always be serving, helping, organizing. But something starts to change when we age. There comes a moment when simply sitting in a chair by the window, watching the light move across the floor, becomes enough. It's not laziness, it's presence, and it's holy. You begin to realize that God isn't impressed by your checklist. He's not counting how many tasks you complete. He just wants you, your attention, your nearness. The Psalm says, "Be still and know that I am God." Not run faster, do more, accomplish everything. Just be still. And for many of us, that stillness doesn't come naturally when we're younger. It's something we learn. Sometimes through illness, sometimes through loss, sometimes just through the slow rhythm of age settling into our bones. But when it comes, it brings a peace that can't be found in any other season of life. Have you noticed how silence feels different now? In the past, silence might have felt uncomfortable. Now, it's often a gift. A chance to breathe, to pray, to simply sit with God without needing to say a word. That's not a small thing. That is a kind of spiritual maturity that only time and grace can bring. And then there's this beautiful shift from self-reliance to surrender. We spend so many decades believing we need to do everything ourselves. Carry the load. Be strong. Provide. Fix. And then, somewhere along the way, our strength begins to fade. Our bodies start to speak a new language. One that says, you need help now. You need rest. You can't do what you used to. At first, that can feel frustrating, humbling, even scary. But what if it's also a holy invitation? What if God uses that physical weakness to teach us a deeper kind of strength? The kind that leans on Him. The kind that says, I can't, but He can. I've seen people discover a whole new side of faith when their bodies no longer obey. They stop fighting and start trusting. They stop pushing and start receiving. And in that space, something extraordinary happens. The Spirit steps in with comfort, with assurance, with love that doesn't depend on what you can do, but on who you are. There's a verse in Corinthians that says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. That truth doesn't always make sense when we're young and strong. But after 60, it becomes real, tangible. You begin to feel that grace. In the middle of pain, in the slowness of your steps, in the quiet prayer you whisper when no one else is around. And you realize you are never carrying this life on your own. Not really. He was always there. You just needed to slow down enough to feel Him. I don't know what this season looks like for you. Maybe you're still very active, and that's a blessing. Maybe you're dealing with chronic pain, or loss, or loneliness. Whatever your circumstances, there is one thing I believe with all my heart. God is not finished with you. In fact, He may be just beginning to show you the most beautiful parts of your soul. If you've ever felt invisible, or like the world has moved on without you, I want you to hear this: God sees you, not as someone fading, but as someone being refined. Not as someone left behind, but as someone being led deeper. These are not the leftover years. These are the ripening years. And there is sacred purpose in every breath you take. So stay with me as we keep exploring these quiet, holy changes that God brings after 60. Because what's happening inside you is not decay. It's transformation. A deep spiritual blooming that doesn't show on the outside, but glows from within. And if this message is touching your heart, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, to like this video, and to share it with someone you love. Let's remind each other that growing older can be the most meaningful part of the journey. Now, let's keep going, because there's so much more beauty to uncover. There is something mysterious that happens when we look back at our lives with a bit more distance. The moments that once seemed disconnected start to form a thread, and we begin to understand things we never saw clearly before. That may sound big, but really, it begins in quiet places. In the heart, when you're sitting alone and a memory comes back. A harsh word you once said, a dream you didn't chase, a loved one you lost too soon. Those memories can visit us more often after 60. They tug at us, ask for reflection. But when you hold it up, can see the whole picture, you realize it tells a story. A story of endurance, of grace, of lessons learned through the long passage of time. And that's not just for you. It's meant to be passed on. Even if your children don't always ask, even if no one is knocking at your door for advice, your legacy is already being formed in the way you treat others, in the way you respond to hardship, in the quiet prayers you lift up for your family each night. Maybe you've battled depression or financial hardship or rejection. Whatever you've walked through, that journey matters. Because when you open your heart and say, I've been there, and God carried me, you are giving someone else a lantern to carry through their own darkness. You no longer wake up wondering what you're missing. You wake up wondering, what can I give today? Who can I love? Who can I bless? That is legacy in motion. And it grows, not in fame or fortune, but in quiet acts of faith that ripple far beyond what you can see. That is legacy. That is ministry. And that is sacred. And that story can warm someone else just by being shared. But those are lies. If your heart is still beating, God is still working. He may not need you to stand on a stage or lead a movement. A living testimony that says, I've walked through fire and I've come out holding peace. And if I can, maybe you can too. He may simply want you to listen to a friend with compassion, to pray for your neighbor, to tell a story from your youth that helps someone feel less alone. These are not small things. These are eternal things. And sometimes they bring sorrow. But they can also be a doorway to healing. Aging can feel lonely, especially when loved ones move away, or when the people who once filled your days are no longer here. The silence of the house becomes louder, and you begin to feel the weight of what's no longer present. They are full of depth, of perspective, of God's ongoing work in your soul. Stay with me as we keep unfolding this journey, because the transformation doesn't stop here. There's one more way God moves in us as we age, and it just might be the most powerful one yet. But if you sit with that silence long enough, something begins to stir in it. A small voice says, "You're still here." That means your presence still matters. All those twists in the road, the regrets that weighed heavy, the choices we questioned, they start to shift in meaning. Romans says that all things work together for good for those who love him. Not just the easy things, but all things. That is not a verse of defeat. That is a verse of purpose. It says, God, I still have something to offer. I may not run as fast. I may not speak as loudly, but I carry stories of your faithfulness that need to be heard. Your words, your presence, your faith. They can change someone's path. That includes your failures, your detours, your silence when you should have spoken, your fear when you should have moved forward, a smile that calms someone's fear, a word of encouragement that keeps someone going, a simple story that helps a grandchild believe in hope. And the beauty of this is that you don't need to be perfect to leave a legacy. You just need to be present, open, honest, willing to share how God has walked with you, even in your weakest moments. Somehow, in His grace, God gathers those pieces and builds something meaningful from them. And often, we only see that in the later chapters of life. It's not that the pain disappears, but we begin to see how God was weaving something through it all, even when we didn't notice. One of the most sacred transformations that can take place as we grow older is this movement from regret to redemption. Because here's the truth, God doesn't waste anything. Not the mistakes, not the missed chances, not even the tears. You might look back and think of people you hurt or paths you didn't take. But now, with a heart shaped by time and tenderness, you may be able to offer others a kind of wisdom that only comes through having been there. Regret, when given to God, doesn't rot the soul. It fertilizes it. It softens you, humbles you, and prepares you to speak into the lives of others in ways that are gentle, not proud. And in doing so, redemption begins. Not because you changed the past, but because God is changing the way it lives inside of you. It's like an old quilt. Some of the fabric is torn, some faded, some stitched together with threads of pain. And that brings us into another beautiful shift that happens with age. It's the slow movement from loneliness to legacy. The world might be busy chasing youth, but God cherishes those who carry years of lived truth. You have seen things. You have felt things. You have overcome things. There is a verse that says, "Even when I am old and gray, do not forsake me, O God, until I declare your power to the next generation." Legacy isn't about having your name on a plaque. It's about planting seeds in the hearts of others. Maybe you've been through a painful marriage, or you've carried grief deeper than anyone knows. Sometimes the enemy whispers that you're too old, too tired, too forgotten to be of use. And when you start to see your life not as a list of losses, but as a growing garden of wisdom and love, something inside shifts. Aging, then, becomes a kind of offering, a gift to the world around you. So as we keep walking together, I hope you're beginning to see that these later years are not empty. There's a moment in life, often after 60, when our eyes start to look further than what's in front of us. The to-do lists are shorter, the schedule's a little looser, and suddenly we find ourselves looking up more. At the sky, at the trees, at the stars, but also inward and upward into the questions that have always been waiting. What really matters now? What am I meant to carry into eternity? What has all this living been for? But because the soul is more in tune with what it was always meant for, you start to understand that joy is not in having everything in place, but in trusting the one who holds it all, because he does not age. His love does not wear out. You may forget a name or a date, but your heart remembers kindness, grace, and the hand of God that has never let go. You may not be able to run as you once did, but you are walking in a wisdom that only time with God can bring. And maybe, just maybe, your soul is more alive now than it has ever been. They do. You are still a vessel of God's light. You are still becoming. You are still part of the story He is telling. And aging, for all its challenges, can be the most spiritual, sacred, and beautiful journey of all. And the closer we get to Him, the more we feel the unshakable truth that we are safe, held, seen. You are still in the hands of the one who makes all things new, even now, even here, even after 60. A faith that has weathered storms, a heart that has known sorrow and still chooses to love, a hope that has been tested and found real, but every prayer whispered in secret, every act of kindness offered with no fanfare, every word of encouragement shared quietly. All of it matters, eternally. And one day, you'll see just how much. And still becoming who we were always meant to be. Not despite aging, but through it. Because the one who carried you through youth, through the valleys, through the joys and the losses, is the same one who walks with you now, steady and faithful. And He is not done. You let go of the need to fix what is broken, and instead rest in the truth that God is already redeeming it. Leave a comment with your thoughts or your own story. You might be surprised how many people are walking this same path and just need someone to say, "Me too." And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Not because of numbers or trends, but because it helps us keep spreading this message of hope to others who need it too. You stop chasing approval and start abiding in love. And then comes the most gentle and yet profound shift of all, the movement from an earthly focus to an eternal vision. That verse isn't just about heaven someday. It's about the posture of the soul right now. It is about choosing to lift your eyes above the weight of the world and remember that you are not just aging. You are preparing for glory, preparing for the home your heart has always longed for. It doesn't mean we stop caring about the people we love or the life we're living here. It means we start seeing all of it through a different lens. We realize how much time we once spent worrying about things that fade, the house, the job, the opinion of others. And now we begin to feel drawn to what lasts. It's not about escaping life. It's about seeing the sacredness of it. Even the simplest moments, a cup of coffee on the porch, the sound of birds outside the window, the quiet presence of God in the room when no one else is around. These things start to glow with meaning, because now we see how connected they are to something bigger than ourselves, something eternal. There is a peace that begins to grow in this stage of life, not because everything is easier. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Set your heart on things above, not on earthly things." There is no fear in that when we walk with God. You may feel slower in body, but your spirit is quicker to notice what matters. This is not the end of your story. It is a chapter of beauty and depth that was written for such a time as this. You carry something rare. You might not see your impact. You might not hear applause. If you've ever wondered whether these years still hold purpose, let me remind you now. So breathe deeply. Look back with grace Look around with wonder and look forward with peace. If this message touched something inside you, I would love for you to share it. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are not fading. You are transforming. You are flourishing.